Hello, everyone. So welcome to the YUVC Capital podcast. It's our first time in Paris, in France, for an in-person podcast. Marianne is the managing partner at Transitions First, which is a cross-border early-stage deep tech VC fund with a presence in the States, in Europe, in France, and in Israel. Thank you, Marianne.
You're very welcome, Eugene. It's lovely to be here. And thank you, Daniel. It's the power of networking. Call out to a Word Fund and Daniel Abib-Pech, who is a great friend and gave me this opportunity to have you in my home today. Last minute.
Thanks for hosting me at your home. So reading your extensive and rich profile, Marianne, I actually wonder, when you were a bit younger, did you picture yourself more as a future CFO or venture capitalist?
None of the above.
None of the above?
No. When I was young, I knew I wanted to do something that matters. And I think, impact has been my DNA. My family are in the medical industry. My grandfather had wine-making vineyards, and it was all about helping others, creating, producing. So it was not really in my watcher to become either a finance person or a venture capitalist. But I believe that when you're going through the journey, your life journey, things are happening. And then it makes sense. You connect the dot, but it's more like your experience and your values. And as a person, I think I've always been driven by helping others and impact. I can give you an example. When I was in high school, the headmaster asked me, Marianne, would you run the pastry shop? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Why not? So it was really cool. I was 13 years old. You can have access to pain au chocolat anytime you wanted. But there's something that was really bothering me because not everyone could buy a pain au chocolat or croissant every day. And I remember it was really something deeply bothering me. And so I went to the headmaster and I say, do you mind if, we're selling pastries in the morning and in the afternoon, mid-afternoon snack, and I have so much waste. Do you mind if we take what is not sold morning and afternoon, and from the morning we sell it with a discount in the afternoon, and the afternoon waste, we sell it the next day with discount. So everybody can have a pain au chocolat or a croissant. And he laughed and he's like, you're really a business person, aren't you? Well, yeah, exactly. So I think my upbringing gave me a bit of a humanist trick and wanting a bit of equality, justice, equal opportunities. I think this has driven some of my choices in my career, from a CFO to a venture capitalist, but more from a young person to a 50 years old woman today.
So what other pivotal moments in the early stages shaped who you are?
I don't think I had a pivotal moment. I think it was a gradual evolution on what I like to do, what I'm good at, and what I think is needed. That led me to from a CFO to a venture capitalist. It was not me having a aha moment on, oh my God, this is what I want to do tomorrow. No, finance was important because for a long time in my life, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I built my career on what is marketable, what is translatable, we having to choose one industry or another, and what can give me the most opportunities on the top of how can I have impact. And that led me from, working in audit first, finance led me to GE, led me to Shell, manufacturing, oil and gas. Manufacturing led me to CapEx, oil and gas led me to impact. Then I started my own entrepreneurship journey, created an M&A boutique with Frontiers Market. That led me to leadership. Being a woman in business also led me to leadership. And all these together led me to venture capital.
All of these shaped what you are today.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's a journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So many say that venture capital is not really about finance. You as a finance guru previously, do you agree that venture capital is not really finance, or especially early stage venture capital?
For me, everything is finance. The way I process the word makes sense. Up the front comes with the numerous value numbers. So it is related to finance. Venture capital is the best sector to be in because, from my perspective, you have the numeracy and how can you create value? How can you unlock value? It's about looking at potential, and you have the creativity. It's like, how can I look at a founder, a company, and see why is it needed, and push my thinking into, well, it might not be needed exactly right now, but I can see the potentiality of this being needed in the future. It's also about liking people. And, I used to say I did a lot of business in emerging market, in frontier market. I can guarantee you that you can have the best deal on the table. At the end of the day, if you on this side of the table don't want to do the deal with me on this side of the table, the deal is not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think venture capital allows you to develop, it's an ecosystem. It's all about relationships. So it's how do you create the relationship with the founders? How do you assess them? How do you help them? And how do you make them deliver value for the world? Because it's impacting what drives me, but also creating value for themselves. So it's a finance with a twist. It's a creativity with a twist, but it's finance with people.
Yeah, of course. Especially, you know, like when exiting is so much important issue. Staying venture capital and your expertise in finance will definitely help with that.
Yes, and it's one of the things with my because I'm the co-managing partner of t1st. My counterpart is in San Francisco, so he's not here today. It was too last minute for him to jump on the plane and be here with us. But when we were looking at the thesis, and one of our unique selling points is about the exit very early when we meet founders, when we meet startups. And yeah, we have like, I think, 15 hard criteria on investment, but what the pathway to exit? And coming from a finance background, being an operational CFO, I don't come from an investment banking background. It's always for us and for Alec on who could acquire this company. Because we realized that there is a very strong mid-cap M&A market, which is uber resilient in the sector that we are interested in, so manufacturing, food, and ag. And unless you've been doing M&A before, it's really hard for a venture capitalist to help as much as we can a startup getting through an M&A journey, preparing for an M&A journey, even if some of them are going to, or most of them are going to tell you we're going to do an IPO. Well, we've seen the market. We believe saying you're going to build a company that is going to be has a very attractive value proposition from a multinational to acquire you is a safer bet. And then if you can get to the IPO, we'll be happy to help you as well, because we also have some of the expertise on IPO inside our organization.
Totally agree. So IPO isn't the only way for the exit, especially you're investing in deep tech. These kind of startups, they might not follow a traditional trajectory of a SaaS companies going public.
Maybe this is the epiphany I had when I realized that I really wanted to go into venture capital, but not any venture capital, industrial venture capital, because I realized, hold on, the VC world as we know it today, how is it creating? Silicon Valley, the engine on the east coast of the US, is all about hypergrowth, is all about asset light, and is all about massive scalability with the hockey stick. And that model cannot work with an industrial startup, because industrial startups are longer lead time, they require CapEx investment, they require much more symbiotic relationship to go to revenue with corporate, and that's a completely mindset and game. So that has driven me towards venture capital. I'm like, hold on, we are in a moment in time where supply chain are important. COVID, we were talking about COVID earlier, sovereignty, a fractured world. It's important to rebuild supply chain. And in our opinion, it cannot be done in a venture capital way. It has to be done with creating value with an industrial mindset paired with venture capitalism.
Exactly. So not every industry, have that privilege to have a zero marginal cost. So I have to mention like the leadership part. So you were actually, before you wrote a book, and it was like Financial Times handbook of leadership. And you were also a prominent speaker on leadership at different stages. So what to you is on earth leadership? Like which leader has the leadership traits that appeal to you the most?
Yeah, I mean, it's very topical because as I was telling you, I'm writing the second book, and
is it still on leadership?
Yes, it's the same one. So I wrote a book about leadership 10 years ago. And the title was Financial Times Guide to Leadership, How to Lead Effectively and Get Results. And now I had the great pleasure to sell about 18 or 20,000, which is really cool for a business book. And the FT asked me to do a second edition. So for the last 6 months, for the last year, really, I've been raising the fund, deploying money, but also thinking a lot about leadership. And I realized that leadership is like anything these days. It has changed so much. 10 years ago, it was much more static. It was about execution, about ending with uncertainty, the beginning of the tech revolution, AI revolution. Today, leadership is about trust because, again, such a fractured, volatile world, leaders need to inspire trust. It's about agility of thinking. It's about scenario planning, working with startups, super interesting as well for corporate to see how they pivot, how they constantly relook at their vision building or their strategic building to be on time, to be relevant, to attract customers, to attract investors. And it's about what I call precise leadership. I think today leadership is about how do you react with who you are, with what you're trying to achieve to the environment. And the environment, you have to have a leadership style that is almost real time, in tune with the person, the cultural element, what they're trying to achieve, and how fast can you create rapport with this person. So leadership has, I think over the last 10 years, what I'm writing in the book right now, it turned itself on the head.
Yeah, I think leadership is so dynamic, like even in different kinds of organizations, leadership can take different forms. So like if we take maybe Elon Musk's X, for example, like their leadership is definitely different from like another company in different industries.
But even look at Mark Zuckerberg when he created Facebook, and his leadership was about, break things, make things happen, don't be afraid to break things. And the vision of the company was about, community. And now as Meta, as the CEO of Meta and turning 40 soon, completely different leadership style. Even the same person going through the journey of leadership changes. I was talking to one of my mentors the other day, was asking me how the book going and everything. And I say to him, I think I'm going to coin two terms, precise leadership. And I think today leadership is like impressionism in painting. It's one little touch after one little touch. Not cubic, not abstract, not big block. It's like nice, easy, softly, gently.
Yeah, especially in such an environment with like everything is changing so fast.
And people are afraid. Fear is everywhere. Fear of business, fear of the macro environment. What is Trump going to do with tariff? How China is going to survive with tariff? How, what's the diversity agenda going to be look like, ESG, climate and everything. Everybody is afraid to take decisions. So leaders are a beacon of solidity, stability, resilience. They need to reassure and reconcile.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's all about trust. And especially like in nowadays, the media plays so much a critical role into that. And
building and destroying trust. I think you asked if I had a leadership model. I don't. I'm a pick and mix type of person. I would say leaders for me today are the innovation skill set. So Leonardo da Vinci would be a part of the leadership. The perfect leader would be innovative spirit from Leonardo da Vinci, strategic thinking from Lorenzo de Medici, because I'm a big fan of everything Italian. I'll take resilience from Christine Lagarde, who's been in the International Monetary Fund and now is a beacon of stability and a voice of reason. I will put Mark Benioff, transformation on finance and venture and the notion of stakeholder capitalism, which I think is really important today. It fits well with my need for impact, the climate agenda. I think when you're in finance, in venture capital, you cannot not think in terms of societal and environmental impact anymore. That will be my go-to people. Plus Queen Kubaba, which was a Sumerian queen that managed to influence all the making of the Sumerian Empire by having a lot of kids and marrying them with different rulers.
Amazing. Actually, I would set you as my leadership role model. And as well, because you just mentioned you're going to set up like a woman club, right?
I did. Being a woman in business is something that I have obviously lived in my career. Specifically being the youngest CFO that Shell ever had, and the youngest woman in a leadership team as well there. I've been a young woman leader in male-dominated environments. And, also on the other side, when I started on my investing journey, I also made a point to support women founders, because we all know it's harder for women to get access to capital. for different reasons, diversity, lack of diversity, the way women present themselves, the way they present information, there is like cognitive difference between men and women. But I am always a strong supporter of that. And it's one of our criteria is not necessarily have more female founder, because when you're investing in deep tech, it's already hard enough to find the right technology and the right team if you superimpose complexity of having a woman founder. But at least you have balanced leadership team.
Yes.
I believe in cognitive diversity and have different people around the table to assess a deal, to assess a business problematic, and come up with the best solution possible, because everyone is using their own lenses and their own culture, background, psyche experience. Creates more challenges, creates more friction, but the answer is a much more solid answer when it comes to business and investment.
I can tell like maybe a perfect like founder team profile of yours might be like that. There must be like female founders on the board as well.
Female advisor.
Sometimes, like if I look at some female founders or investors, when they are confident, they just shine. They just look so different. They're just so outstanding from the group, from the peers.
Yeah. Why do you say that? What makes them standing or shining?
Because there are a few traits that you immediately spot on that person. They represent females or other, minority groups. And they didn't take that as a inferiority, but like something that they can leverage, a challenge that they turn into an opportunity to be the key opinion leader in that group.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I never thought about it this way, but it's absolutely true. And it's also about the courage to say, I'm a woman, but so what? I can do things.
To be honest, I also share this feeling because we are ethnically Chinese, and sometimes, like under this geopolitical tension between China and the States, China and the rest of the world, sometimes we face that tension as well. Like someone, like some potential guests of ours, they see, you have a Chinese face, and then they, naturally are reluctant to have more like open exchanges with you. Of course, I'm also navigating, to find a way, to also turn that weakness into an opportunity or to be an opinion leader in that sense.
Even more interesting what you say, Eugene, because I was having a conversation with the legal counsel of Nokia not so long ago about diversity.
Yeah.
And we were talking about female, male, gender diversity. And he made these comments, he's like, well, when you have people in a room, you don't know how many different gender are in the room. And I very naively say, yes, it's male or female. He's like, no, that's what you think. But it is what your physical being says, what your brain says, gender fluidity and everything, but also what the attribute of who you are say. And he made this comment, he said, when I look at you, Marianne, I don't see a woman, or I don't see a gender fluid or, whatever type of person. I see a person who has passion, who has drive, who wants to do things, who has impact at heart, and this is what I see. So I cut across all the bias I can have from gender and everything by fundamentally anchoring on the value of the person. And what I see when I see you, I see someone who is interesting, curious, wants to understand, wants to do something. So that's what I see. I don't really care, which nationality, which culture and everything. And this is also another trait in leadership that is important to carry forward. Look for attributes.
Absolutely. It's so refreshing, to talk to leaders like you and, like maybe like, for example, one of our prior guests, like Guy Kawasaki.
Oh, cool.
He was also like a best-selling author and also like the ex-chief evangelist of Apple.
He's in my book, yeah, because I think we exchanged emails or something, but he sent me a nice quote about like why people wanted to work in Apple and with Steve Jobs, because everybody knows the atmosphere in Apple was like, Steve Jobs, but I mean the iconic, founder of Apple, but from a leadership perspective, he has a pretty very harsh, almost dictatorial style. And I was asking via email a question of like, why people kept wanting to work for Apple. And he said, this very beautiful sentence. He said, because it meant something and we were driving towards a better world or better technology and empower us to be creative.
Yeah.
And because these people were feeling that, they would go above and beyond and they would kind of like forget about the difficult work environment.
sometimes, despite being worsely paid.
Yes, the purpose they found and the pride, purpose and pride are, I think, as well, going back to venture capital, the purpose and the pride of doing something and having an impact. It's, I think, what we look for in our founders.
Absolutely. Now let's dive a bit deeper into venture capital. Now is the time. And now you are the managing partner at Transitions First. And what kind of fund is it? And why invest in Europe and in the US at the same time for you?
So Transition First is an early stage deep tech industrial venture capital. We want to accelerate industrial transition. We want to address an unserved market, which is the scale-up market. Very easy to find dollars to fund innovation and then growth, but the scale-up part of the industrial world is a bit unserved. We believe it's a massive opportunity because if you look at the way we produce and manufacturing, food, tech, industrial manufacturing, it's a $3 trillion market. And if you superimpose, what I was telling you about rebuilding supply chain in a fractured world with the net zero compliance mindset, because I also come from the oil and gas industry originally, you quickly realize that 56% of the greenhouse gas emissions are coming from three sectors: industrial, manufacturing, food, and everything, that only attract 21% of venture dollar. It's a capex, it's an asset. You need breakthrough technology.
That traditional VCs don't want to touch on.
The hockey stick is not fast enough. The hockey stick is not impressive enough. And we like that. We like that because it plays to our strength. My co-partner, Alec, is a scientist. He had a first fund who was about founder scientist. So he understands innovation. He's been in the founding team of the Berkeley incubator called the Sci-Tree, the Foundry. So he exactly knows how to assess technology, deep diving in the techno-economic, and I bring the how do we scale industrialization process from my experience in oil and gas, in G and everything. We also believe that for this particular fund, we want a concentrated portfolio. It's early stage, so it's seed up to Series A, and concentrated portfolio because we believe industrial startup needs a lot of, I'm going to say help, with all the humility that I want to bring to that word, because they're helping us as much as we're helping them, right? But having Alec being able to really deep dive on the techno-economics and me being able to look into the equity story, the financing story, and both of us helping them open doors with the corporate world that usually for industrial startups are their first client and their first revenue, helping them navigate the process from scale up and first of a kind venturing, which is, R&D dollar, industrialization plan, looking at what the core of the IP you want to keep in the company, how can you develop an asset right strategy with joint venture, offtake and all that, give us a unique perspective and make this fund an important fund to have today in this environment.
Definitely. I see your team quite complementary in that sense.
It's all about cognitive diversity. US, Europe, because first of all, like everything in life, it's about meeting the right people at the right time. So Alec is in the US, in Silicon Valley. I am here. We are an industrial fund, and regardless of what you want to say, there is an industrial revolution happening in Silicon Valley with the EV, with the quantum, semiconductor, like all this is transforming again. And traditional industrial revolution were always in Europe. So, having both part of, I keep saying the pond, which is not the pond because the pond is more London, New York, but Paris, San Francisco is more the bigger ocean, having, cross-border or being in those two geographies are important. And obviously there's the evaluation, this arbitrage.
Yeah.
Talent, I know you mentioned talent at one point. I think, we don't invest in all of the US and we don't invest in all of Europe. We only invest in the ecosystem where you have industrial innovation. So Silicon Valley, Texas as well, because a lot of what we invest in are about moving away from petrochemical feedstock. So it has a circular economy element, a new material element, a biomanufacturing element, and that is very geared to the petrochemical industry. So in the US, you find a lot of those in Texas for obvious reason of oil and gas. And in Europe, France, the UK, granted, some people say that UK is not Europe anymore. For me, it's still going to be Europe. Germany, the Netherlands, strong ecosystem on advanced material and supply optimization. And we're starting to look into Italy as well, specifically the eastern part of Italy, the Trieste and all this, where you have a lot of food tech, biomanufacturing ability. We like to go where people don't go. Though, in France, of course, we invest in, France is a very concentrated market in terms of there's a lot of startups in Paris and everything. But if you go outside, if you go to Brittany, a lot of things happening on fermentation, algae. If you go to the north of France, there's a lot of things happening in food tech. Captex Santé Nutrition is a fund I personally invested in that does a lot on that. If you go to the southern part of France, Toulouse or Montpellier, a lot of food, ag, but also aerospace. So we're trying not to be only concentrated in the hub, but also finding pocket of value in less exposed hub. So we have a competitive advantage. And we see the best deal.
Yeah, and France is actually an ecosystem that's quite hard to break in. Even, for me, it's a French ecosystem seems even vastly distinct from the German ones.
Yeah, the French ecosystem requires, first of all, you to speak French, but more importantly, to understand how French thinks. It's even hard for me sometimes because I left France 13 years ago. But I have an advantage, I speak the language. I think, France is going through interesting as a country transformation as well. What do we want to stand for? What do we want to play in the global, first European market and then the global market? Venture capital is actually a little bit less developed in France than it could be in the US, obviously. And we're trying to play catch up. A lot of government initiative on that. France is an industrial country, so a lot of industrial initiatives on that with Le Plan de Relance, so with, grants and subsidies, until we're able to come up with our first unicorn and being able to build this continuum of financing is important. Now, when you see a company like Mistral, which was going to be one of the potential unicorn in AI going to the US because they can't find the right risk appetite in the French market, it's a bit sad, but when there's a will, there's a way, and eventually we will get there.
Yeah, I believe there'll be much more like unicorns, or it doesn't really matter if it's called unicorn or not, like future industry champions coming out of France. Because nowadays, if you ask a random guy in China who is working venture, and you ask him, okay, what's hot in France? Okay, the only answer is Mistral.
Yeah,
of course. I'm sure like in the future, there'll be more, especially even from the industrial space.
But also there's one thing is when you are a company or a startup that is deemed from strategic interest in France, you have a lot of constraint on capital making. So who can be on your cap table? Yeah. And you at one point was 10%. I think now is less than that. I think it's 5% now. You cannot have more than 5% of foreign investor in your cap table. So not European investment and everything. So it puts a little bit more of like, it's hard to be able to play in that market.
Yeah, it's kind of a barrier.
Yeah, it's a really strong barrier. But sovereignty is everywhere. Sovereignty is the name of the game today. Even, look what's happening in the US and going back to the tariffs and everything. So kind of makes sense as well.
Yeah, for European startups or for French startups to win out this tech race, you either have a centralized single exchange here in Europe to ensure liquidity. Either from day one, you enter the US market and then you start to operate on that market, maybe both in the US and France, but also Europe. And then you can have a better chance or edge to exit in the States earlier, because we have to admit it, the States is always the best destination for exits.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I think when we look at our own strategy, it's very ingrained. When we look at our startup, we look at who the exit could be. And in the industrial world, the exit are either going to be a European player, so Unilever, BASF, or the US. So it made sense for us to be in both geographies. You have three markets that matters, the US, China, and Europe, to different degrees. If you want to be in the US, if you want to be credible in the US, you have to be in the US. If you want to be in Europe, you can be a US company coming here, but then you need to adjust to the local culture, the regulatory environment. And now with China, it's getting harder to find out
really hard.
what's the play with China now, because it feels like you have to decide the US or China.
Yesterday, I was just discussing this issue with a company founder. Like he already raised his Series B, and he's talking about where potentially can we go public.
Exactly.
Hong Kong,
well,
liquidity issues.
Liquidity issue. It's a small market as well. And China, if you have to choose between the US and China, most of the European companies are going to choose the US because from a cultural standpoint, it's easier. You understand better how things are, working in the US. And there is a more natural, shared history that makes business easier.
Yeah. And maybe also depending on the industry. If it's like pure play software, it's definitely in the States. But maybe it's like more towards manufacturing, or because if you have to rely on these supply chain advantages in China, maybe that's a different story.
Yeah. Well, we should talk offline because we have one of our startup who's looking to make a way in China. I'd love to have your help sometime. They're doing coloring without pigments. It's a Nobel Prize technology.
So what kind of founder, out of a French company would you like to invest?
So specifically for French founder or...
It doesn't have to be a French founder or a European startup founder.
We actually have the same criteria, regardless of us looking in the US or in Europe. The valuations are different, but the criteria are the same. And it's, from a business perspective, it always have to be a breakthrough technology with a profound roots in science. We like science, and Alec loves science. It's his game. He can understand, he can assess. Most of the technologies we're seeing, it has to make sense from a science perspective and have the techno-economics. We look for companies that have what they are going to offer to the market as real value and can be, so there's a pain or need, could be market share, could be innovation, could be productivity. We need to see the pathway to price parity with whatever is done today. It has to be easy. And we are absolutely looking for plug and play solution. So, any founder who could have the best technology, but in order for corporate to be interested in that technology, if it requires to scrap billions of dollars of capex to put this technology, it's not something that we're not going to be investing in. The market needs to be big enough. Obviously, we want to also have a resilience in revenue. So a technology that can serve different segment of the market. Most of the company we have invested in have, at least two industry. One, the coloring company I was telling you about, they can do automotive coloring, but also cosmetic coloring and packaging coloring. We invested in a company that take all type of plastics, has a modular microwave-based pyrolysis process that allow to recycle this plastic 10 times faster and 10 times cheaper than bigger pyrolysis facility.
It's always about faster and cheaper.
Yeah, faster, cheaper, and easier in terms of it's modular, so you can put close to a manufacturing facility. There's less oil and gas facility or plastic facility. There is less transportation cost. There are less environmental impact. So life cycle analysis is something we also take into consideration.
I also noticed several of your portfolio companies here in Europe.
Neolith is in Europe. Neolith is in Europe as well. That was one of my personal investments. We have 50 in the US, 50% in Europe. And what we found from a founder's perspective or team, resilience, pragmatism. I take a pragmatic, a little bit a realistic founder over the super realistic, optimistic, vision-driven, charismatic founder. Because we're talking about an industrial process. Industrialization is not fun. It's hard, it's difficult, it's processed, structured. So I'll take one of those any day. And we are very hands-on. So we want to make sure they want us and they see value in us helping them get into what they need. So price, technology, easiness, pragmatism, and resilience.
Cool. It's a very nice summary.
and climate.
Yes. I actually have a question regarding a misconception by the vast majority. So like, it seems like you invest a lot in circular economy or helping the industry to recycle better, easier, faster, or you have popular companies like AgriLoops, which seems like a better workflow or better solution to better produce seafood, fish, shrimp. It seems like there's a lack of technology point of view.
So most of the company we invested in are deep tech. AgriLoops is actually surprisingly deep tech because they're doing shrimp breeding and vegetable breeding with the same water in a closed loop. So you put water once and you can breed endlessly, and you can do that inland. So inherently, instead of having to, to have mangrove deforestation and transportation costs, you can pretty much, I use this example all the time, although probably not the most realistic one, you can put a shrimp farm in the middle of the desert in Abu Dhabi or in Masdar and have shrimps. So there is a strong technology element in it. How do you do the right biotope with the right acidic level that allows to breed both shrimp and vegetables? It's less industrial deep tech, as you can say, like from a Resynergy or even Cypress, which does coloring without pigment, or even two of the company we are looking at right now. One does liquid graphene, and the other one is going to do a bio-based surfactant coming from a biomanufacturing, but still has a bit of a deep tech in it.
And the scalability and the market potential.
It's like
these shrimps must be expensive.
No, actually, that's another. There will be premium shrimps. So if you want to get into the shrimps market, look at Unima, look at La Berouge shrimps, and they hopefully will be very in scale up right now. They just finished their invested last year. They're going to go back on the market with a Series B fundraise next year. And their cost of production on their first pilot is showing promising sign that they can produce at price parity with a premium product.
I mean, but that comes to a question, it's always about demand and supply. If you got like the supply done, and then like the price might be driven down.
Not necessarily, because what is interesting about AgriLoops is they are going to bring to the market a new product, which is fresh shrimp, which doesn't exist. And if you look at, every shrimps you consume are frozen, flash frozen, because where they are usually breeded is in Ecuador, Latin America, Madagascar, and then the consumer market are in Europe, the US, Asia. When you have the capacity to do local shrimps, you have access to fresh shrimps. And fresh shrimps, it's a completely different market still be more a premium market for, restaurant, luxury restaurant and everything. But eventually, if it's a question of price, again, the price point are easy, could become a more mass market. So we'll see. If you ask me what's your highest conviction deal so far, I would say it's the Resynergy deal with the plastic recircular economy, because they can do plastic, but they can also do road graded diesel, which means, this company can move from recycling to renewable energy, and eventually sustainable aviation fuel, which is also in the renewable energy. So this is the company where we have the highest conviction so far. AgriLoops, I love AgriLoops. I love the founders. They are like 30 something. They are, smart. They learn. They think about what they're doing. They have an amazing board. Do you know Insect, the company?
No,
so
not yet.
Insect is another of like the French potential unicorn back in the day. And the two founders of Insect were very involved in the beginning of AgriLoops. So, they have been blessed with a great advisor, great supporter. And then, it's interesting to see how they're going through their scaling process without making a lot of mistakes. So it's the first deal I've ever seen with people so young that is, from a scale-up industrialization standpoint, on time and on budget. They managed their, this industrialization process so far on time and on budget. Now we're going to see if they are finding their sweet spot in the market and see how demand is going to go.
Yeah, I'd love some fresh salmon in the future from them.
Yeah, well, next time you need to tell me, because they're not producing shrimps right now, the shrimp farms as we speak. should be on stream in Q1. So if you're coming back from Paris in Q2, make sure we have real streams to eat together.
As a VC, so what are your like most contrarian views towards the industry or investing?
We're trying to be real. We're not chasing the IPO. We're not chasing the unicorn. We're not chasing the asset light. We want to invest in real founders that do real industrial things and are going to build great company that are going to be acquisition target for multinational. The multinationals are not going to go away. I love the AI, craze. I love the SynBio craze and everything. You have the hype cycle and then it goes down and you have a second hype cycle. Coming from an industrial background, oil and gas is not sexy. I worked for GE Lighting, so manufacturing light bulbs is not sexy. Ali coming from a science background where, it's all about the tech, it's all about this. We're kind of a bit unfazed with UHA, venture capital. Just want to find good deals, find good founders, help them, scale them, and make great company. We want to run a very concentrated portfolio where we can't afford to have one company going bust. All of our company need to perform to make, our LP happy. And we have Asian LP, by the way, in Japan, that are fantastic in terms of insight on this part of the world as well. We don't necessarily buy into the hype.
Yeah, not many VCs say that. You just want to be real. It's very critical.
Find good deal, work the deal, and say what you do what you say. That's what 10 for. If we say to a startup, and I think you can talk to all our startups, are they helping really? Because every VC can say, yeah, we're going to help you. And we are helping really. So, for one of our company, we're helping them finding their next strategic partner. AgriLoops, we are starting to put insights and search for them on other markets in the Middle East, in Asia, eventually once they scale up a little bit. For Synergy, we really help them on thinking through their joint development agreement with a couple of corporate, also help them close a couple of financing rounds, syndicate a lot of people, opening door both sides of the pond and everything. So we're very involved with always trying to, never cross the line of their business is the business. Our business is investing.
Perfect.
Trying to be humble. We don't know more than they do. We would never know their company better than they do. We can just help them sometimes, get when founders get lost in the weeds, give them, okay, hold on, let's go back, helicopter view, hold the mirror when they're not honest, and sometimes challenge them on the execution. Challenge and support.
And where do you see your fund actually in 5 years?
I think, we're a small fund. Obviously, we want to be a bigger fund. But in terms of philosophy, I think, we set for the next 2, 3, 1. Once up to having a 250 million fund, it's going to be industrial, scale up, maybe bigger check in the beginning, maybe more follow-on round, because right now we do one-on-one on follow-on. So obviously when you have a smaller fund,
as like DJ last time described, there's like a Series B, like there's a valley in Europe especially to fund those. The funding gap is there.
Yes. Series A, Series B, we can play up to Series A, and then it's all about, and that's why, being a cross-border is fantastic, because we know if we do our job right, if we pick the right one that have interest, and where we'll find appetite from both sides of the pond, we'll federate Series B investor. And I think there's a great fund we love. They call Nucleus Capital. We see the word, they do SynBio mostly deals, first of a kind. We are a bit more generalist than just that because we do circular economy and advanced material as well. Their mindset is the same, and we came across them in one deal and probably a second deal soon. And the point we were making was like, okay, once you are there, jointly, when you're a small fund working in this space, you gotta start planning the Series B investor for your startup. And, the more you can share ecosystem, the more you can do co-investment, the better. Because industrial venture capital is very nascent as a vertical, as an asset class, as we would say.
It's true. Absolutely. Maybe now let's move to like more personal parts of the podcast. Is there anything like you had deep faith on in the past, and then now you think it's not that important?
What do you think my answer on that is going to be?
I have no idea. Because like you always hear me like answer that I never imagined about.
No, I'm an option person. I've always been an option person, having different. When you are a CFO, so very analytical brain, and a writer, very creative brain, you go. I'm schizophrenic in my mind all the time.
I'm being French.
And I'm being and a French woman with two brains. No, I never had a deep faith. I think I'm more you're a product of the environment and the sum of your experience. My environment growing up was impact, helping others. My experience, some of my experience are CapEx, energy, transition, changing the word macro. And, along the way, life happens.
And you have to keep all these different ideas in the same brain.
I have a lot of headaches. Or I use not to sleep a lot. Because, my brain is hyperactive sometimes. I think the older I get, the more I'm convinced that we are on this earth for such a short period of time. Make it count. Make it count. And not just for yourself. What do you leave behind? How are you going to? And it's all, again, about leadership, because one of the definitions I have in the book of leadership is like, if something different happened because of you, it's a sign of leadership. And I think this is what Alec and I want to do with the fund. Make sure something different happens because of us. A startup that didn't have a chance to get funding, and then do something amazing with shrimps. You were very keen on shrimps, or plastic, or something else. Not deep faith and no change. Is more like a journey. Sometimes easy, sometimes not so easy, but a journey.
Yeah. That absolutely resonates with me. Some smart people say that, like we will all be forgot like in 2 or 3 generations. Maybe those leaders are remembered still, like those leaders 100 years ago, 200 years ago, because they made something that others didn't.
Yeah, but good question for us to ponder on. Would Elon Musk be remembered as a leader, as an innovator, as a disruptor, or as evil?
There will be people having those 2 answers. It's better that we have more people like that, like Elon. The world will be more diverse. And of course, there'll be more evils, maybe.
It's interesting. We'll see. Your guess is as good as mine.
It's like everyone's talking about AI, AGI, with a risk.
Ethical AI is a big thing, but have you ever heard of Salman Khan? Salman Khan, he created the Khan Academy, and he wrote a book called A Brave New World. And he was speaking at a conference in London back in April. So I attended the conference, and we had a chat after that. And I was asking him, AI, what are your thoughts and fears of AI? And he said something that really resonated profoundly with me. He said, AI is only going to be an accelerator of human nature. If your nature is to be a good person, it will accelerate and compound the impact. If you're an evil person or less ethical person, it would go the opposite way.
Yeah.
So it's all about personal responsibility and personal value.
It's a tool.
Yeah, it's a tool. It's an enabler. And going back to the leadership in the book, there is a huge part of the book on what I call the accelerator of leadership. The book has 3 parts. One part is about the context of leadership. What is leadership, and what is leadership tomorrow? The second is what I call the foundational pillars of leadership. You have 3 parts. It's self-awareness. And the question is like, how can I lead others if I can't lead myself? The second is leading and influencing. And the question is, why would anyone be led by me? And the third one is about execution. Something different happened because of me. So those are the 3 foundations as a leader or as a would-be leader you need to develop and think about. And then you have the accelerators. And for me, the accelerators are how do you leverage your brain? Because there's so much happening right now in neuroscience with the going back to invest in the longevity and tech for longevity, how your brain works, how you can cure yourself, the brain that rewires itself, all the Norman Deutsch era and all that. So super interesting to see how can you use your brain to be a better leader in self-regulation, decision-making, communication. Then you have communication as an accelerator, because today it's all about communication. How do you communicate to federate, create trust, bond? And then the last part is how you leverage artificial intelligence and technology. For this, I'm really passionate about as well, to deep dive into that from a book perspective. But in the process, finding startups are also interesting for transition first.
Yeah, absolutely. So AI and all these larger tools and leadership is what the guiding pillar is that guides us to the future.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. The beacon of light for the future.
Yeah. Perfect, Marianne. Thanks so much.
Thank you
for joining me in this podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
I learned a lot.
And I enjoyed the conversation tremendously, but you didn't ask me the meaning of life.
Well, I thought you just answered that in your life.
Yeah, I did. I didn't really want to answer the meaning of life, but for two things. Make it count and have fun doing it.
Yeah, we're having fun doing it a lot.
Thank you, Eugene.
Thank you. Thank you, Marianne.